Reactors are a good, clean, safe source of energy, right? They produce a ton of energy, and the only thing they release is water vapor into the atmosphere. Well, you're partially right there. One thing that most people don't think of when they think nuclear reactors is all the waste that comes out of them. The used uranium, the used plutonium, the concrete and pipes and wiring and coolant that they have to replace every few years or whatever to get rid of it. And everything that comes out is slightly irradiated, so it makes radioactive isotopes inside of the substances, which can stay radioactive for thousands of years before the half-life breaks down. And the effects of radiation on the environment can destroy ecosystems, cause mutations, and cancer, and other sort of things like that. And examples of radiation affecting the environment is the Fat Man and Little Boy, the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945, and over 71 years later, nowadays, there's still high rate of mutations and a very high rate of thyroid cancer, actually, in those areas, compared to the rest of the world. And another example is Chernobyl, how it exploded in 1987. It's a Russian nuclear reactor facility that still has areas, it's almost 30 years later, that has areas where nothing can survive except for Twinkies and cockroaches. And the World Nuclear Association states that there are some countries around the world that produce up to 300,000 cubic meters of radioactive waste that can include not only the used uranium, plutonium, and the concrete wires and pipes and coolant and heavy water and other radioactive things like that every single year. And only about 6% of that waste is actually properly stored underground, where the radiation has a very small chance of affecting our ecosystems. All the radioactive waste, yes, it does eventually break down, but that can take up to thousands of years depending on the half-life of the radioactive isotopes. And so, the real problem is the fact that these facilities are just dumping things into our ecosystems. Even if you just say that it's dumping into our landfills, the radiation can affect us where we are right now. And one of the main things that they produce is this stuff called heavy water, which is a radioactive isotope of water, which they release into reservoirs, which can leak into our drinking water reservoirs and crops, and can affect that. So you could get a mutated piece of corn tomorrow, whatever. And another thing that could happen is the radiation can cause mutations in even like your own household. So you could have a child and you could have a third arm or missing an ear or something like that because of mutations because of this irradiation. And it really could get bad in the future if they continue doing it. And what some people are doing, about this, is Bill Gates is actually funding research on facilities that will use some of this radioactive waste to produce more power, but nothing has been built or anything like that. So it's just being stored and dumped in places. And another idea that people have put up is dumping the radioactive waste into the sun and disintegrating it, but that is not a cost-effective plan for disposing of this waste. And since in the Journal of Applied Sciences has calculated that over 1,400 metric tons of just plutonium waste has been created over the past half century. That is a lot of plutonium that's just sitting around, and that could be affecting us whenever, however. And they have no good ways of destroying it or getting rid of it besides storing it. And some things that we can't really do much about it because it's such an expensive field, and so we have to the only things we can do is support any means of better disposal of this stuff comes up, or just leave it up to scientists and more influential people such as Bill Gates to do this. And sadly, there's not much we can do about it. but it can affect us in the future. It can affect our lives, our family, our environment, all that stuff. So if not something's not done, it could change our world for the worst.